What's going on, guys? Andy here, and welcome to another video. If you're new here, I'm a full-time user experience engineer on a journey to create amazing characters and exciting worlds while sharing everything I learn along the way with you. Now, in this video, I'm going to be using the mind map that we built in my previous video, and I'm going to be taking you through my process and thoughts on how I research and collect references in the early stages of a character concept. So, if you're ready to get started, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe so you don't miss future content, and let's just dive right into it. So let's first talk about why we should be gathering reference. And I think artists cite many reasons for why references are important, and for a lot of really great reasons. Now, having images that we can rely on in our creative process for fact checking is incredibly useful, and they also serve as powerful inputs and stimulants to our imagination. And well, that for me is the primary reason for finding references for the input. To find ingredients to throw into the pot in order to cook up something amazing and maybe never before seen. And of course, once we get our ideas down and in place, the references will help guide the believability and practicality of our designs. Now, quite frankly, I know sometimes this process can be a little tedious, but I think it's in our best interest to do our due diligence, and maybe my approach can help spice things up for you. So let's start where we left off in the previous video. Now, I'm personally a very organized and methodical person, so I like to keep my references and workflow pretty structured. So here I have PureF, which is a handy application you can install for free, but do also donate to the team for all their incredible work if you can. I'll leave a link in the description below to the download page. On this reference board, I'm going to mentally divide it into 5 separate sections that I will use for all 3 characters we mapped out in the previous video. Now, the reason why I'm using a single reference sheet for all 3 characters instead of, let's say, I don't know, 1 reference sheet per character is mainly to keep the door open to ideas blending together. For example, allowing a reference of medieval armor to meld and be recontextualized into techwear in a more futuristic or sci-fi space. I also find that categorizing my references allows me to concentrate on certain areas of the character without being inundated and overwhelmed with too much stimuli. So the 5 buckets that I'm going to collect references for are the look of the character, the general mood and colors of the character, the accessories and items they will have, their personality, and the body composition, as well as potential posing. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into building our reference sheet. Usually when I'm starting out, I'll hop straight onto Pinterest and start looking for references pertaining particularly to the look of the character and what they might wear. So in this case, I know I'm going to want some medieval knight armor as well as some futuristic slash streetwear type of clothing. At this stage, I don't find it a problem to say deep dive into the references. So it helps if you also want to find references of, let's say, nice capes or cool helmets to be inspired by. Just go really specific and deep. Along the way of finding these references, I'll most likely find body composition references as well. Now in this instance, I think it's nice to have some degree of choice, as in you may have already decided that you want a character that is a little more rounded in physique than muscular. So you can go and look for that specifically and maybe narrow down your pool of references. In this case, I personally don't know what kind of physique I want my character to have, so I think it could be fun to experiment, so I'll just kind of pick up some images that I find could help give me some degree of flexibility and depth. But, in this case, I also have to find images for peacocks as well, so I don't want to forget to do that. And since we borrowed the idea of horse riding, but, with a peacock, it could be useful to find images of horse riders as well. When I think about the character's personality, I will generally look for expressions or body language that give off that air I'm looking for. In addition, I might also find characters from games or shows that I've watched that give off that same energy I'm looking for. So if you have any of those, I would include those too.
Hey guys, Editing Andy here. I wanted to also quickly touch on a few points that I want to mention in hindsight. The first thing is, don't rush. I strongly encourage that you take your time with this process to take in all the inspiration and ideas and to give everything a fair chance. Have fun exploring. It'll pay off in the long run. When I'm doing this process, I try to have at least 50 images in the bank to pull from. Ideally, there are enough images in each of the 5 buckets to be inspired by, and each bucket isn't leaning too heavily in one direction. Not to mention, it is totally okay to start off disorganized and come back to organize your images later. I just happen to prefer being more structured. Don't let neatness or some sense of perfectionism stop you from exploring and collecting a bunch of inspiration and inputs. Which brings me to my next point, and that is if you find an image that might not fit into one of the 5 buckets that I mentioned, no worries. You can always create a section of your own or maybe a miscellaneous image dump, but don't let the categories restrict you too much. And last but not least, as you do this exercise, you may find that you're leaning towards a certain direction or even coming up with a new direction that excites you. Either of those are fine and actually great. But just as I mentioned in my last video, I think it's important that we do our due diligence and explore all the ideas we have, since that exploration could actually help reinforce the idea that we're most excited about. Not to mention, by doing more practice and gaining more mileage, you'll have a clearer sense of what you overall like in a design or in a character, making it easier and more instinctual in future projects you have.
Now, at this point, I think it's important to address a question or concern that a lot of people bring up, and it has to do with originality or derivative work. Things like, how do I get my character to feel original and not just an imitation of X, Y, or Z character? If I have these characters in my reference sheet, how do I avoid this pitfall? To these concerns, I say, collect and actually use a ton of references. The more references you have, the more you can remix and intermingle ideas and motifs together. These unique pairings create unique characters. Of course, nothing is original, but having that many more inputs only increases your chances that the output is a little more your own. To wrap the reference sheet up, when I look for images that will help guide the mood and colors of the character, I like to find photographs of landscapes and nature, or scenes from movies. I find that in the case of cinema, scenes are generally well color graded for a specific mood, and in the case of nature, generally speaking, everything is innately and naturally awe-inspiring. With all these images collected, I think this wraps up this reference sheet. So here we have our finished reference sheet. As you can see, it is broken up into 5 sections that I mentioned and serve both as reference and a mood board. So honestly, I don't know if I would really call this like a reference sheet since it does serve as both. So maybe it's more of a visual guide. Regardless, with this in hand, we are ready to move into the actual drawing part of our character design. In the next video in this series, we're going to take the ideas we generated from the mind map, these references that we collected, and we're going to start ideating using silhouettes and some quick sketches. Now, I might start spacing these videos out a little bit, not entirely sure, but make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on so you don't miss that video. I think it'll mostly be a demonstrative one, so if you're interested in how I draw or do silhouettes, stay tuned. That all being said, I hope this video was helpful and that my method for finding and arranging my references can facilitate your journey towards creating amazing characters, art, and worlds. If it did, it would mean a whole lot to me if you could let me know by hitting the like button and letting me know down in the comments what methods you use to find references or how you might use this method that I just shared with you guys in conjunction with yours. Always happy to hear from you guys and connect with you all. This series I'm putting together at the moment is taking a larger chunk of my time, but hopefully I'll have some new art to share soon. But stay in the loop by following me on both Instagram and Twitter. Links in the description as well. And with all the plugging out of the way, I hope you guys have an amazing day, create amazing and fulfilling work, and like always, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.